I'd like to start with the reading from Autobiography of a Yogi, a very brief reading on yoga, Krishna's words to Arjuna. Referring to yoga's sure and methodical efficacy, Lord Krishna praises the technological yogi in the following words. The yogi is greater than body-disciplining ascetics, greater even than the followers of the path of wisdom, Dhyana yoga, or of the path of action, karma yoga. Be thou, O disciple Arjuna, a yogi. And we know the classic definition for yoga from the great exponent of yoga, Patanjali, is yogas chitta vritti nirod. Yoga is the neutralization of the waves of feeling, the waves of chitta, the ups and downs, the things that pull our energy away from our center, that pull them into the senses, that pull them into the world. It's really the karma that is coming up, and we neutralize that karma as we practice yoga. There was a beautiful story of a man who was practicing Kriya Yoga, the meditation practice that Paramahansa Yoganandaji taught, the most advanced meditation practice. And he would practice with some drink, whiskey, in one hand, a glass or bottle, and he had his japa mala, his meditation beads, in the other hand. He would meditate, do a few kriya pranayams, and then he would drink a little bit, and then he'd do a little bit more kriya, then he would drink, and Yoganandaji, he didn't worry much about these things. He said, just continue to practice your yoga. And the man continued, and then one day he went into a very deep state of meditation, of ecstasy, of joy. And it wasn't at all because of the drink. It was because his energy was drawn into the spine and uplifted to this point between the eyebrows. And he put the bottle down at that point, and he said, I don't need this anymore. I have joy within myself. And this is where yoga takes us, away from the outer poles and into touching our soul's nature, touching the essence of our being within each one of us. I remember when I began to practice yoga, and I'll be talking a bit about many aspects of it, but when I mean yoga, I'm meaning more the umbrella of Raja Yoga, which encompasses all the practices of yoga that take us to attunement with God, that peel away what we aren't, and so that the essence of our being comes into manifestation. And as I began to practice yoga postures, Hatha Yoga, the very beginning of the path, not very long after, I felt the need to let go of eating meat. It took me about a year to let go of the different types, but it came from my practice of yoga, because after Hatha Yoga I was practicing, I felt so wonderful. I felt free, I felt pure, I felt uplifted, and I just couldn't eat. I ate less and less meat until after a year I didn't eat it anymore. I remember as I began to do the chants, the spiritualized devotional chants of Paramahansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda, I changed the music that I would listen to otherwise. I used to listen to jazz or various types of music, but as I began to chant, my consciousness changed, and I began to change the music. As I began to meditate, my thoughts changed. And this is what I wanted to say, these things were happening naturally. I wasn't saying, oh, I have to change the music, I have to change my thoughts, I have to change my friends, I have to change. It was coming about spontaneously. As I was meditating, higher, pure thoughts, ideas, inspiration began to come to me. Solutions to difficulties began to come because my energy and my consciousness was uplifted and it was expanded through meditation. As I began to study the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali's writings, and the Holy Bible, various scriptures, and the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, I began to let go of other books and reading materials that just weren't doing me any good. I couldn't read them anymore. As I began to have the photographs of the gurus on my altar, what happened was I was so magnetized by them because they were taking my energy within and up that I began to really, friends that or people that weren't positive, who weren't uplifting, who weren't maybe guru-wise or on the path or whatever, they began to fall away. I just didn't feel like being around them. Same with as I went to satsangs. I began to start not going to places that weren't good for me. But this all came from yoga, from going inside. Yoga means union of the soul with spirit. And yoga, the path of yoga, presents techniques and teachings which allow us to do that. And some of them are, I mentioned earlier, Hatha Yoga. The path of Raja Yoga that I want to explain encompasses practices for body, mind, and soul. And so Hatha Yoga is one of the practices that we do, particularly for the body, but it cleanses us to uplift our energy up to the higher centers, higher chakras. Other practices of yoga, particularly on the path that we're on, are the energization or energy exercises of Paramahansa Yogananda. They're pranayama with movement that help to cleanse the body, that help to charge it with fresh prana. Every cell, every muscle is filled with light and energy. Also, pranayama. We practice breathing techniques, or pranayama means control of the energy. So through the breath, we do particular practices that help to cleanse the body, yes, but more so they help to uplift the energy. So we practice Hatha Yoga, we practice energization, we practice pranayama, we practice the a yogic diet. Now, Master said don't go into fanaticism. To have a proper Eatarian diet, meaning eat properly. Things that that make your energy heavy, or make you restless, or make your heart beat a lot, or make your mind spin around, that you just want to go less and less on those. So on the path of yoga, we practice a particular yogic diet. You can look in the Raja Yoga lessons for more information. We do affirmations, positive affirmations to cleanse the mind and to put positive thoughts. And we have affirmation chants and other kinds of devotional chants that help to uplift us and help to open the heart and have our energy more focused on God. And I said earlier about good company, also seva, doing service. The main practice of the path of yoga is any practice that really draws us within. Now, at a certain point, we chant, and then we can't really chant anymore because we're so deep inside. We've gone beyond the chant. That's really what yoga is about. We do the postures. At a certain point, we can't do another posture. We feel so inwardly still and calm and uplifted. We've gone to the point of yoga. At a certain point, we have techniques of meditation. We have the Hong Sa technique. For those on this path, you would know that we have the Om technique in Korea. At a certain point, you just really can't do those practices anymore. Like the man the alcoholic I told you about. At a certain point, you just feel so uplifted in the light that you've gone beyond the practice. This is where yoga takes you. At a certain point, you can't read, study anymore. You've gone beyond the words. You're in sipping the silence within, and you're in inner communion with God. You can't energize anymore. All of these things, the tools fall away when you come to the essence of your being, the essence of yoga. When the soul taps into spirit, and the wave merges with the ocean of cosmic consciousness, then we've gone beyond yoga. And I remember I've been teaching for some time, but sharing the teachings, and I don't know of anywhere that I've gone where people didn't enjoy yoga. And I've been in several African countries with these teachings, and in Australia, and I lived in Europe for a number of years and helped there with our centers. I've been in many of the states, the United States of America. Now I'm in India. Of course people love yoga here in India, but everywhere I've gone. And why is that? That people enjoy yoga? Because it takes away all the blockages, the tensions, the energy pulls that draw your energy down, and it allows you to become who and what you really are. Yoganandaji said you won't be able to recognize yourself. You'll be so changed from the practices, from not just talking about them and hearing someone else, but the word I want to keep saying here is the practice. As we practice, we begin to change who and what we really are. And I was just at Ananda Village, some of you know, in America. I'm just back in India. It's a joy to be back. And I lived and grew up spiritually. Most of my life really has been with Ananda. And when I went to Ananda Village this time, I was just so grateful, because Ananda Village and Ananda colonies all over, but particularly I was thinking there, it's a place where Swami Kriyanandaji founded that, so people could go and also visit, but you could also live every day the teachings of yoga, and chanting every day and doing the asanas and the various practices, and being with like-minded people who are all practicing yoga. And you, at one point during this weekend that we were there, it was the Moksha Mandir opening weekend where Swami Kriyanandaji's mortal remains are placed in that mandir. And people were saying, oh, there'll be so many people here, it'll be so crowded, and oh, there won't be room, and everything. And as people came, there were about 650 people. It was so calm, it was so peaceful, it was so inward, it was so joyful. And why? Because everyone there was a yogi. Everyone, many for decades have been practicing. I saw some of my friends who've been practicing yoga for 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. And so the vibration was just calm and centered and happy and harmonious. And you didn't feel, oh, there's too many people, oh, we're crowded, oh, because it was the same vibration. When you practice yoga, you come to that center of yourself, and that center is the same as the other person's center. The essence is the same, God within each person. And so yoga and yogic communities and yoga retreats and places such as these allow you to be with other people who are practicing yoga, who are living from the essence of their being with high energy, with calmness, with truthfulness, with higher consciousness and expanded awareness. And I remember when I first went to Ananda Village in 1978, I saw that, what I saw this time, but I was, this time when I went, but I saw people that were so clear-minded, such seemingly very happy, high energy people, and I thought, I hadn't ever seen anybody like that before. And I thought, well, this is one way to live, and then it came to me so clearly, this is the only way to live, that you live with coming from the center of your being, coming from the energy there, and learning how to uplift it through the practices of yoga, learning to be calm, learning to be solution-oriented, learning to be magnetic, learning to be higher energy, learning to be kind. All of these things come from the practice of yoga. What is life otherwise? Well, I'll give you an example. a man came the other day to the ashram to renew my insurance policy, and first of all, he was very late, and I told him several times, don't be late, I have other engagements, please be on time. Yes, madam, yes, I'll be there. Heard the story many times. And of course, and then he's lost and he's late, and so he finally arrives, and he's just a nervous wreck. He was just like he's coming apart at the seams, and he sat down, and he has the policy, and he's all nervous. He doesn't have the right page, and he's trying to find that. And then several phone calls come, and he's talking on the phone, and he said, "Madam, do you sign here?" And then somebody else calls him, and I finally just said, pay attention. If you're coming to do this, do it well. And I thought, is this how people live? So outward, so uncentered, so restless and nervous. And that's no way to live. And so what happened this past weekend with the International Day of Yoga, which the United Nations, through Modi's request, Prime Minister Modi's request, was a great day to focus your energy going back within, to get a balance again with our energy from our daily life, not just restlessness and running hither and yon and doing all kinds of things, but having moments in your life, in your day, where you're still, where you're quiet, where you're getting your body, your energy aligned. And then from there you sit and meditate, and you clear your mind and uplift it and focus it. The day of yoga should be every day, really. But at least we have one day a year now after all this time. But people have lost complete sense of balance in their lives, and going outward, various things, worldly activities, or I don't know, whatever the things are, you can fill in the blanks. But how can you be happy that way if your energy is always going out? And I love one thing I heard on one of Swamiji's talks recently. He said, there's, after a night of out drinking or gambling or whatever people do, he said there's always a hangover. And then he went on to say that, but that doesn't just apply to that, it applies to anything that you've overindulged in the senses, going outside of yourself. So you could have a hangover after overeating. You could have a hangover after being too emotional. You could have a hangover after the various things, being angry during the day at your neighbor or whatever. And the hangover, what does that mean? It means you feel sort of down, your mind feels cloudy, your energy's all over the place, you're not clear or centered. And this is how many people live. And it creates tensions and worries and fears and all kinds of things. It leads to more medication, or some people end up in the hospital even, or to a psychiatrist or whatever. Well, there is an answer to this. And I saw the movie The Answer while I was in America, the story of Swami Kriyanandaji's time with our Guruji, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Swamiji's life up to that time. It's a very beautiful film that it'll be coming here to India at some point soon. But so Swamiji was a young man, and he's restless. He doesn't have a purpose in life. He doesn't know what to do. His energy is outward, and he comes and he meets Paramahansa Yogananda. He reads his book. He gets on the bus. He's 4 days and 4 nights traveling to meet this great yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda. And he meets Yoganandaji, and it's such a beautiful scene, because here's this young man, he's 22, he doesn't have any direction in life, he doesn't know what to do, and here's a great yogi, great yoga master of yoga, and Swamiji he bows in front of him, and Master interviews him, and then at a certain point he says, you have good karma. And he blesses him at the heart chakra, and he accepts him as his disciple. And afterwards he tells the others, we have a new brother. But what is so beautiful, what happens in that time of the guru-disciple relationship is Paramahansa Yoganandaji teaches his disciple, Swami Kriyananda, he teaches him yoga. And he teaches everything that we're practicing. He teaches him yoga. Just like Krishna, when Arjuna came to him and said, I'm thy disciple, teach me. Krishna taught Arjuna yoga. Jesus Christ to his disciples, Master said he was a yogi. He practiced Kriya Yoga or something similar. He taught it to his close disciples. Jesus Christ as well taught his disciples yoga. So here we are in our times, and our masters again are teaching us the keys to how to live in happiness and centeredness and high energy and upliftedness. They're teaching us the keys again of yoga. And when Yoganandaji went to America, and he had many thousands of people who came to hear him. And I mean, America was very materialistic, and but he was sent by God to go to America and to bring the teachings, really the original teachings of Krishna and the original teachings of Jesus Christ, which in essence were the same, and they were the teachings of yoga. So Yoganandaji came, and he had many thousands of people coming to hear him, and he taught them the energy exercises. He taught them how to meditate. He had people doing affirmations at his talks. He had a harmonium. He had people doing chanting. He had healing techniques that he showed people. And I often thought, now why did so many people come? Because America it's not like India. People just weren't that interested in God. But he showed what God, what Spirit really is through opening the doors of yoga. He gave people techniques, tools, methods. He gave them something to do. And he didn't try to convince them. He said, try it. In yoga, we say, try. See if it works for you. There was a man his name was Bob Raymer, one of Master's disciples, Yoganandaji's disciples. And when he came to Yoganandaji, and he read his book, and I think he was a millionaire. He had his own jet, and he came there to meet Master in Los Angeles, I think it was. And he said he wanted to learn this practice of, he called it Kriya Yoga. Of course, we know it's Kriya Yoga, but the Master opens the door, and Bob Raymer's standing there, and the Master says, well, how can I help you? He says, I want to learn this Kriya Yoga. So Master says, please come in. And so he was kind of testing him, and he was also softening him, because Yoganandaji had a photo album of some of his relatives on the coffee table, and he had some kind of mithai, some box of mithai there. And so he would show Bob the pictures of it. Master showed the pictures of his relatives, and oh, this is my brother. Doesn't he look like Cary Grant or some famous actor? And Bob Raymer, he didn't know what to think about this, because he just wanted to learn how to meditate. And then Master had these mithai, these sweets, and he kept putting them in his mouth, and and he's feeding him, and the man just didn't know what to think of all this. And he kept saying, well, I came here because I wanted to learn this Kriya Yoga. And finally, Master, after a long time of just showing him the pictures of the relatives and feeding him the sweets, he finally says, at a certain point, he says, okay, tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So the man's very happy, and he comes back, and he's there with Master. Master teaches him Kriya Yoga, and the man, Master tells him what to do. He says, you go home, and tonight you practice this tonight. So the man, he says, I didn't have my normal 2 martinis, which I usually had every evening, because my guru told me to practice this meditation. So he goes and he sits on his bed, and he begins to practice the technique of Kriya Yoga that he learned. And I heard this story from him myself at Ananda village. There were hundreds of people there. He was there speaking many years back, and he said, I began to do this practice, and I felt all of a sudden this energy just moved up my spine, and he said it was the most blissful moment of my life. He said, I began to weep for joy. He said, I began to laugh. He said, I fell off the bed laughing and crying. And I thought, this is what I've been wanting my whole life. This. And the yoga helped him, but of course, let's face it, the Master's blessings. And so in all of our practices, let's remember, yes, we can achieve that state of yoga through the practices, through the keys. Master would say, you've got the keys in your hand. Just practice. Practice all the different tools. And that practice with the grace of God is what brings the yoga, union with God. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you, Jesus Christ said. What did he mean? Go inside first. All the practices of yoga take you within. And then from there, clarity comes, focus comes, magnetism comes, more energy comes, solutions come, inspiration comes. When you take the time in your day to go within in yoga and then bring that into your daily life. God bless you all.